Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Alexandra Lose, Head of Education for Little Sprouts, Building Blocks, and Heartworks, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Tonight, we are coming together to explore one of the biggest topics of the season, back to school transitions. So whether you're a caregiver, a parent, an educator, this time of year can bring excitement and challenges. And today's session is designed to support you through it all. We are honored to welcome Alyssa Blask Campbell, founder of Seed and Sow and a nationally recognized expert in emotional development and early childhood education. Alyssa's work centers on equipping adults with the tools to raise emotionally intelligent children, and her insights have transformed classrooms and homes across the globe. What makes tonight especially meaningful is that all of our schools are SEED certified, a commitment that reflects our shared dedication to emotional wellness and connection. Through this certification, we provide tools and resources, not just to our educators, but to our families and children as well, creating a consistent and supportive environment for everyone involved in a child's life. Tonight, Alyssa will be guiding us through a strategy to ease the transition back to school with a focus on emotional regulation, connection, resilience, and her approach is always practical, compassionate, and rooted in research, and we're so excited to learn from her this evening. So please give me a warm welcome, or join me in giving a warm welcome to Alyssa Campbell.
Hello, thanks for having me, Alex. I'm stoked to get to hang out with y'all tonight and want to do a couple just like orders of business. First, want to let you know that this is being recorded and the recording will be shared with you. So if your household is like mine and you have like bedtime battles that might be happening or things like that and need to step away, or if you have a co-parent or a partner who you're trying to tag team the evening routine and watching this with, you'll be able to share it with them and dive back in. I am so jazzed to dive into this with you because I'm also living it. I have a master's in early childhood and did research in building emotional intelligence. And also, I'm a mom to a 4.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old who are right now in the midst of a transition back to childcare and actually to a new school this year. So, want to let you know that I feel you in this and I'm here with you. And we'll dive into real life examples. Please feel free to ask questions as we go. I don't need to take them all at the end. So as things come up, if there's anything I say and you want clarification or you want to add anything, please feel free to pop it into the chat and we can be in conversation together. I have slides here for you. We are first going to kickstart with just thinking about a time where you were starting a new classroom, a new job, a new experience, and everything that comes with that. The newness of the routine, the driving to a new job, and what's the route, and who am I going to meet there, and what are my exact duties going to be. Imagine that you are in this space and we're like, okay, you're starting a new job on Monday, and here you go. You're going to go to this new school. It's going to be great. You're going to have so much fun. But we don't give you a whole lot of information around it. Who's going to be there? What can you expect? How do you get there? When will you have lunch? Will you have lunch? Who is it provided? Are you bringing it? Is there coffee there? Am I bringing my own? All the nitty-gritty details of your day-to-day that help your brain feel safe because they know what to expect. Those, if they are left in the unknown, kind of start to spiral, and it makes everything else harder. So when we're looking at our tiny humans here, what I want to look at is how do we give them enough information and support to help them through this transition, to help them through the challenges without overwhelming their brain? We'll look at different ages and stages within this. And let's see here. We've got a nervous system. If you are alive, if you are a human, you have a nervous system. And for all of us, we cycle in and out of regulation and dysregulation. That blue zone at the bottom is what you might feel if you feel embarrassed or sad or disappointed. My 4-year-old calls this being a turtle, where he wants to go inside of his shell and hide. Our green zone there is regulated. this is calm. We know when our kids are regulated, they're really easy to be around. They can navigate conflict resolution or kind of have that back and forth with us. They might have like a go with the flow to them that when they're not in the green zone is ever so noticeable. The yellow zone is heightened. This could be excited and happy. It could also be anxious or scared or mad or frustrated. And it's where our body starts to feel a little out of control, where it's getting heightened, and then that red is fully out of control. This is that full meltdown. We sometimes see this in this season because their nervous system is kind of so fried from all the newness of the day. It can be really easy to enter into the red. Last year, I remember at one point turning to my husband, Zach, and just saying, oh my gosh, is this who our kid is now? When we were in that like first week of back to school time, new teacher, new classmates, and every night felt like it was like big meltdown city. And he would just be sobbing. And it could feel like it was like 20 minutes or the smallest thing would set him off. And he would get into that red zone and have a hard time coming down from it. When we're looking at regulation throughout the day and coming in and out of it, what we're looking to try and have happen is to stay between the blue and the yellow and the green, kind of flowing in and out. When we're getting into the red, it's where our body's like, help, I can't do anything else. And sometimes we're going to get there. Sometimes we're going to enter into that distress space. And we'll talk about what to do when our kids are getting there, especially in these seasons where their nervous system's working really hard. It's our brain's job to keep us safe. And so our brain is looking around us all day long, filtering the information to say, is that something that's important? Do I have to pay attention to it? It's noticing the different sounds, the sights. If somebody stands up in a kid's classroom and starts to walk or move, or a baby cries, or someone starts to yell or is making noise, their brain is paying attention to it to say, is that important? Do I have to notice that? Is that going to keep me safe? If they have somebody zooming by them with a pretend play car, their brain's going to say, oh, you're safe. If a fire alarm starts to go off or somebody starts yelling, help, help, their brain's going to say, oh, we're not safe. Pay attention to that. By design, our brain's doing this all day long. But as it's doing this, it's exhausting our nervous system. And for all of us and all of our kids, this is not a one size fits all. I have two totally different humans. My 4-year-old, he is what we call a small funnel hole kid. The bottom of his funnel is really small. My daughter has a larger funnel hole. What this means is that for her, she can take a lot of stimuli at a time before she feels overwhelmed by it. She can be in a room with a bunch of kids and a lot of noises and a lot going on, and she can filter it out. She doesn't notice a lot of details around her. She isn't as particular, doesn't notice how things feel on her body, or if this food is too hot, too cold, too bumpy, too smooth. My son notices the details of everything around him. And it is a superpower. And with this superpower, he can get overwhelmed faster with stimuli. He notices those sounds. If I move something in his face, he's like, Mom, where'd you put my train? I'm like, oh yeah, just put it back on the shelf where it belongs. He's like, oh, I was lining that up. I was going to come home and play with that. He notices if something shifts in his environment, pays attention to those details in a way that her brain and body do not. But because of this, his nervous system needs more breaks throughout the day. When we're looking at these senses, we often hear of our first 5: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. There are 4 others that I want to get to know so that we can see how do we support our kids in these seasons. Because if you have more than one child or have ever interacted with more than one child, you know that it's not one size fits all. And so figuring out how do you respond to your unique child requires us first to look at who are they and how do their brain and body work. Maybe you've like seen something on the internet or heard something in a parenting book and you're like, okay, I tried that and it's not working for my kid. Awesome. We're going to look at who is your unique child and what will work for them. When we're looking at these 9 senses, we have that interoceptive sense. That lets us know what's happening inside. Am I hungry? Am I tired? Do I have to go to the bathroom? Is my heart beating fast? Am I having a feeling internally? We have our proprioceptive sense. This lets us know where our body ends and something else begins. I have low proprioceptive awareness. What this means is that Like my bed, for instance, hasn't moved in years. That bed frame has been in the same place, but I constantly bump into it. I've got bruises on my legs because I go to move around it and I bump into it, or into the chair as I'm walking by it, or into the table. My daughter's like this. She's bumping into things. She can be like a bull in a china shop. She goes to sit next to somebody and she sits on them. Kiddos with lower proprioceptive awareness need more proprioceptive input. And we get this through that big body play, climbing, jumping. She would climb back inside the womb if she could. There's like not enough touch. She wants to be in my lap. She's climbing all over my body versus my son, who has high proprioceptive awareness, and he can bob and weave between things and not bump into them. When he was a baby, we have pictures of him as a newborn, and he's like, I recognize you have to carry me from place to place because I can't crawl, but like I want to touch you as little as possible. He's like pushing off of our chest as we're carrying him. He does not need a lot of that deep pressure. He isn't climbing all over the place and jumping in the way that her body needs. We have our vestibular sense. This is located in the inner ear, and it's responsible for your movement and balance. It keeps you upright. And for our vestibular sensitive kids, they might get motion sickness. I had a little girl when I was a teacher in my toddler room who would vomit on the way to school most days. She would get that car sickness from that vestibular input of rear facing. And anytime we have rear facing, you're getting vestibular input because your body's going in a different way than it's facing. And she's refacing that car seat, and they'd show up and they're like, yep, again. We just like kept a million changes of clothes at school for her because we knew that she was vestibular sensitive. And so she was going to get that motion sickness more easily. A vestibular seeker is going to be someone who loves the swings or spinning around or kind of dipping upside down. I just left my kids with my husband for bedtime, and my son, when I left him, was hanging upside down off the couch watching Paw Patrol. Like he will flip right upside down any chance he can get, or spin or hop on a swing. Our neuroceptive sense is what I call our spidey sense. This lets us know if there's safety or danger. You know that feeling if you like walk into a room and people have been arguing and they like stop, but you can feel it and you're like, oh, this is awkward. That's your neuroceptive sense at work. It's reading the energy of the room. Our neuroceptive sensitive kids can appear like highly sensitive. They read that energy in the room. I had a preschooler when I was teaching preschool who would say, Miss Alyssa, I can't talk to you with that face on. And it was when I would be frustrated and I'm like trying to get 16 kids or 18 kids out the door to go to the playground. And he always wanted to do everything himself, which obviously takes time. We all know this. And time is not always something that we have to give. You're going to the doctor appointment or you're trying to get out the door and you're like, yeah, buckling yourself into the car seat right now is not what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be stepping in to help. But he would always want to do things himself. And so I was internally frustrated and annoyed as I'm trying to get these kids out. And instead of saying, oh man, I'm feeling frustrated and calming my body and naming it, he was reading the frustration from all my nonverbal cues, even if my words were the quote right words, right? Even if I was saying the thing I wanted to say, he could read the energy of like, oh, you're not feeling good about this. Miss Alyssa, I can't talk to you with that face on. And he was my neuroceptive sensitive kid that I always think of. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I am feeling frustrated right now. Thank you for calling that in. And for some of our kids, I just thought of this teacher who's incredible. And every time kids come into the room, she has like a big greeting. She's like, hi, it's so nice to see you. How are you doing this weekend? And one of the things we had to coach her on was that's so awesome for some kids. For your kids who are not neuroceptive sensitive. For your neuroceptive sensitive kids, they're like, whoa, that was big energy. And they might need it to come down a little bit. So when we're looking at neuroception, it's really looking at what is not being said. What's that nonverbal communication, the tone, the body language, all that jazz, your facial expressions. Now, for all of our kids, they're going to be sensitive to some of these things, which means it drains them, it's dysregulating for them. And they're going to be seeking some of these, which means it's regulating for them. It recharges them. And all of our kids are different. All of us are different. We worked with a group of occupational therapists to put a tool together that I'm sharing with you now. You can scan that QR code to snag that and fill it out later. You can fill it out for every member of your family if you want, all ages, including adults. And it'll help you understand on all 9 of those. Here's kind of what the results page will look like. I'll show you, and then I'll go back to it in case you're still scanning, where you'll see for all 9 of those, where do you fall? So this person is a +2 for proprioception, which means they are highly seeking. Or vestibular, +2, they are highly seeking vestibular input. This kiddo needs a lot of movement. You'll see the results say they are high sensory seeking. Tactily, they are a +2. They're in that plus category for a lot of these, which lets us know that they're going to need a lot of touch, a lot of movement, a lot of input, which is so helpful to understand because it lets us know that in the morning, before we leave in the morning, what are they going to need that's going to charge them up? When we get home from school, what activities are we going to do to charge them up again, to give them that boost? And then when they're having a hard time, what is going to be the right way to respond that supports their nervous system? If we know that they need that big body movement or that big body play, my daughter, for instance, this morning, to get her to the car, I was like, oh no, we have to get all the way from here to the car door. Should we hop like a frog or do you want to fly like a butterfly? And doing that movement allows her nervous system to say, oh, I do want to hop like a frog. If I was just like, come on, let's go to the car, she's like, yeah, right, I must stay home. And then it's this battle of getting her out to the car. But when I give her that movement opportunity, because she's a sensory seeker, she wants that movement, that sounds like a fun plan to her. My son, who is not sensory seeking, that's not the approach for him. For him, I'm actually decreasing stimuli and his task demand throughout the morning. When we're looking at our sensory sensitive kids who fall into that sensitive side for a number of those categories, what we know is that their brain and body are working so hard to filter the stimuli that all of the little tasks that happen drain them even more than our neutral seekers or our high seekers. And so for them, I'm going to look at, for instance, I know my 4-year-old can get himself dressed. I know that he can put his shoes on. But there are times where I help him with those tasks because it is going to give him more capacity to move through the morning. It makes everything else less of a fight if I say, hey, bud, let's go get dressed, and I help him get dressed. Or, hey, come on over, I'll help you put on your shoes. And I help him with those tasks that I already know he knows how to do, in the same way that there are days where I hit the end of the day and I'm like, could somebody please come brush my teeth and put me to bed? Not because I don't know how to do it, but because I'm just spent, I'm exhausted. And so when I'm looking at our sensory sensitive kids, one of the things that can be really helpful in getting out the day or when we come home is looking at what are the tasks we're asking them to do and what are things we might be able to take off their plate or just help them with. This can look like I preload his toothbrush with the toothpaste. He brushes himself, but I preload it for him. Those little steps that can add up at the end of the day, especially. So your results page will look something similar to this with all 9. It'll have suggestions on kind of what to do. And then we can use that information to answer these 3 questions. What can you do in the morning before they leave? Before we're getting out the door, how can we either reduce some tasks for them and help them out? Or maybe I'm going to say for my sensory sensitive kid, he said, I don't like it when we're a singing family. He doesn't want like background music playing. He doesn't want anything going on. And my daughter's over there, she's 20 months old and she'll go, Alexa. And she's like yelling for music to be played. Play dinosaurs marching. And so for us, it's looking at how do we meet both their needs? I might play a game with her that gets a little movement in without Alexa playing in the background because that's going to drain him. And so it's this kind of tag team, especially if your household's like mine and you have 2 kids who are a sensory mismatch. One needs one thing and the other needs the total opposite. That sometimes we're juggling, like whose needs can we meet in which ways? That's what I'm going to look at first. What can I do in the morning before they leave? How can I get movement or input in? How can I take some things off their plate? How can I reduce some background stimuli? What can they do right after school? So when they're coming home from school and they've been working so hard with that brain all day long and they feel fried, how can we recharge them? For our sensory sensitive kids, I'm going to look at how can I create something like cozy or calming, or where they're a little more kind of like isolated, where they have that downtime solo or with an adult? One of the things we started doing was that when my son comes home, he likes to swing. We have a swing inside and he'll swing in it, and he doesn't want my daughter in there, where he's like, I just need a minute where she's not talking to me. And like, I get it. I hear mama 7 million times a day. Even as a working parent with my kids in childcare, I still feel like it's 7 million times a day. I'm like, buddy, I get the desire for silence for a minute. And so we're looking at how do we carve that out for him when he comes home. And she wants to just like chat, 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 and maybe have a dance party and touch and jump and climb. Her body needs that movement and that stimuli. So looking at what does your unique child need after school, and how do we provide those things? And that questionnaire that I just shared will give some of those ideas. So it'll show, based off of their nervous system, what are some behaviors you might be seeing, and what are some helpful tools for that. And then in the moment, those things that we know about them that are helpful outside the moment, we're going to start to bring into the moment. So when your kid is melting down over getting the wrong spoon at dinner, that was not the one that they had anticipated or wanted, and now you have fully failed them, and they're sobbing and they're melting. In that moment, if you have that kid who is more sensory sensitive and can get really overwhelmed, I'm going to say as little as possible in that moment. I'm going to say, man, you wanted a different spoon. And then I'm going to stop talking. I'm probably not going to touch them. I'm not going to give them a hug. I'm not going to put my hand on them. They will often fly off the handle if they're sensitive to that proprioceptive input or to that touch. And so for those kiddos, I'm going to stay near them, but I'm going to do as little talking and as little touching as possible. I'm going to validate quickly and then just give them the space to express. I'll reduce any stimuli I can. So sometimes that's me moving my son into another room because his sister is now screaming about something else and he needs a break from that sound. For our kids who are sensory seeking, in the moment, I am going to validate probably a little bit more. Man, you really wanted that spoon, and I gave you a different one. Oh, you can say, can I have a different spoon, please? Or I wanted a different one. And I'm going to give them more language around that. And then I might say, oh, do you want to do 5 big jumps? Let's jump as high as we can. And I'm going to lift them up and help them come down, and lift them up and help them come down. I'm going to get their body moving, which is what our high sensory seekers and sensory seekers across the board are looking for in that movement. They want to, in that moment, they want to move. They want to move that cortisol or adrenaline throughout their body. And so we're going to bring what we know about how their nervous system works into those hard moments and customize it to them. My husband and I are very different humans. He's sensory sensitive, I'm sensory seeking. And so in the moment, I'm also like, yeah, talk to me, validate my experience, tell me how annoying that person was or how frustrating that situation was. And like, yeah, let's be in this together. And I want to talk, talk, talk. And he wants, like my son, quiet and space. In fact, early on in our like dating relationship, there was one point where we were in conflict and he kept trying to get that space to like calm, to be able to have the conflict. And I just kept following him around and like filling the silence. He got in the shower at one point because he's like, is there any place I can go? Or she's going to stop following me and talking to me. When we're looking at how does this person's nervous system work, our inclination is often to respond to them in the way that ours works, for what feels good for us. And so when we understand how does ours work and then how does theirs work, it's kind of like love languages. We can look at how do we differentiate this for them to meet their needs, not just what I would want in the moment and what feels good to me. Anytime we're looking at kiddos and we're seeing these behaviors, what we want is self-control. We want them to choose their words, choose their actions, choose their tone, choose their body language, not throw that thing across the room and instead say, I feel frustrated, or not push their sibling and instead say, can I have a turn, or can I be next, or I want space. Access to self-control means we have access to our whole brain. The front of our brain here is called our prefrontal cortex. That is the part of our brain that we need to make a decision, to do problem solving, to access all the tools that we might have outside the moment. Just the other day, I have that like lovely hour from 4 to 5 where I pick my kids up from childcare at 4 and my husband comes home at about 5:15. And so I get this lovely time where everybody's kind of melty and dysregulated, and I'm trying to get dinner ready. And one kid needs no talking, and the other kid needs to be all over my body. And it's often a like hot time in the household. And I'm getting dinner ready, and my husband walks in. He's like, "Hey, what's for dinner?" And in that moment, I was so frustrated and so overwhelmed. There were a lot of questions I would have loved to hear, like, "Hey, do you need a minute? Do you want to tap out? Is there something I can do to be helpful?" Or just take a kid into the other room. But hey, what's for dinner? Just like hit me in a spot where I was like, that's not the question, my friend. And in that moment, I was sarcastic and snippy and rude to my husband, not because I'm like, you know what, this is going to be best for my marriage. This is the most helpful way to navigate this conflict, but because I don't have access to self control, because I wasn't in a regulated state. My body was dysregulated and I wasn't noticing those cues. You can't regulate what you're not aware of. So it starts with us noticing, what does it feel like in our bodies when we're getting dysregulated? And if we have kids who don't know what it feels like when they're getting mad, when they're getting frustrated, when they're feeling overwhelmed, when they're feeling sad, and they can't tell us what it feels like in their body, then they don't know how to tap into the self-regulation part of like, you could ask for a hug, or you could take space, or you could do deep breaths. They don't know when they're supposed to tap into those things if they don't know what it feels like in their body when they're getting dysregulated. So we start there. We say things like, "Wow, your voice is getting loud and your shoulders are up to your ears. Gosh, you look frustrated." And then we say, "I'm going to help your body feel calm so we can make a different choice." And we can step in and support the regulation so that we can get back to a place where we can access self-control. Now, the goal of doing this work, of supporting this nervous system, of doing the movement in the morning for our sensory seekers and in the afternoon, isn't so that they'll be fully recharged all day long and be able to always be in a regulated state and make the right choice. There's not a human on the planet that has that. I got a master's degree in this. I've written 2 books on it. I researched emotional development. There's no one in my household that's regulated all the time. It's not the goal. If you're a human on planet Earth, you're cycling in and out of regulation and dysregulation. What we're looking at here is, how do we give you the most capacity? Because say we start the day and they've had a good night of sleep and they eat food and we're like, okay, we're pretty regulated right now. We're maybe all the way up in that green space where we're pretty recharged. And my daughter does something annoying to my son and he's like, "Hey, I don't like that," or "I don't want you to do that." And he can access those words because he's in the green zone. And then say it's later on in the day, or he didn't sleep very well, or he says no to the breakfast offering, and he starts to get down into that yellow throughout the day, and he's less and less recharged. He's more drained. He has less capacity. Then when she does something annoying, he's like, "Stop it. I don't like that." And he's yelling at her, right? And then we get to the red zone where he has nothing left in the tank. And when we're in that space and she does something annoying to him, that's when he's screaming or throwing something or hitting her, because his nervous system has nothing left to work with. He cannot access patience. He cannot access his other tools in those moments. So the point of the recharge isn't to always be in the green, but it's to recognize that when we're in that red, they're not going to be able to make another choice until we can recharge them and get them a little closer to that yellow and help continue to increase that capacity. Dysregulation can show up in a lot of ways. For sometimes it's like a tornado, like a Tasmanian devil. They're like all over the place. They maybe are hitting, they're throwing stuff, they're melting down. Sometimes it's bouncing where they just kind of can't sit still. My daughter like climbing all over my body. It can be silliness where they're like, "ha ha," and like teasing, or kind of like poking fun at each other. It can be fidgeting where they just have something they need to be touching or using. Tapping, another fidget. It can be defiance where they stare you in the face and it looks like they're regulated and they just do the other thing. It can be ignoring where they're like, "Yeah, I can't hear you." And they're not necessarily looking at you in the face. In fact, they're not usually. They're just like, "Yeah, I can't hear you. I have nothing going on here." Like the other day when it was just like too quiet, I was in the kitchen getting stuff together and my daughter Mila I was just like, she's been too quiet for too long. You know that feeling. I feel like every parent knows that feeling. And I went to look for her, and the bathroom door was like cracked open. I was like, oh man. I pop in and she's playing in the toilet and just like splashing around. And I was like, Mila. And I had called her name throughout. I'm like, Mila, where are you? Mila, I can't find you. And she's fully just ignoring that. And then I pop in. I'm like, Mila, are you playing in the toilet? And she like smiles and laughs and splashes again and then runs away. It can be yelling or screaming at you, or it could be that meltdown or the tantrum. All of these are the same thing on the inside. It's that the nervous system is pumping, your adrenal glands pump adrenaline or cortisol, which puts your brain into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn space. It can be up in the yellow or it could be up in the red. And it shuts down your rational thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex, the one that you need to make sound decisions. So when we're in that space, they are not choosing their actions. They're not choosing to hit their sibling. They're not choosing to throw that thing across the room. They're not choosing defiance, which can be so tricky because it looks like they are. When they're not screaming, they're not yelling, they're just looking at you and they slap you, or they hit you, or they do the thing they're not supposed to. What's so key for us to know is that they're not choosing it, even if it looks it on the outside. They're in a dysregulated state. Now, when they're in a dysregulated state, their nervous system turns on that amygdala, their fight, flight, freeze, fawn brain. These four are, my son always asks, like, what does that animal do when they're scared? And so it started, we talk about them as animals in my household, where the fight animal is the lion. When they feel scared, they fight back. These are our kids who are scratching or hitting or yelling or throwing something. They get big and they go into fight mode. This is, my daughter predominantly goes into fight mode. In fact, my son said the other day, Mom, it's really hard to live with a lion sometimes. Like, for sure, dude. And then we have our flight. These are our fleers. My son will sometimes do this, where, especially if he feels embarrassed about something or he feels guilty, like if he does hit her or hurt somebody, he'll often flee. He'll run and find a cozy spot. Freeze is the possum, and it literally just, they just drop down. In fact, when Sage, my son, was maybe about 18 months in childcare, there was another kid about his age who was learning how to enter into play and didn't know how to do that yet or have the language for it. So he'd often go up and push, or he might bite or hit. And as he's skill building, that kiddo's doing the only thing he knows how to do to try and enter into play. And my son learned that if he just dropped down and yelled no, and he would like freeze like a possum, then that kiddo would leave him alone. And so he would freeze, his nervous system would freeze. And then the fawn. Our fawn is the people pleaser. It's that dog that meets you at the door and it's like, I'm so sorry I got into the garbage again. I know I wasn't supposed to. These are our kids who go, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. My daughter will do this sometimes. She'll hit you and then she'll go, okay. And she'll lean in and give you a kiss. She's like, oh my gosh, I went into that fight mode and now I ruptured and I need to be back into connection here. Okay, what do you do when your child is sensory seeking when they are eating? And we know if they don't eat, it will only dysregulate them more. I love this question. We have, I'm going to share this brand, right? This is my favorite brand for this. There are a couple different like seat options. So it could be that you put like an exercise band around their chair if they have like legs to their chair that they can kind of kick or move. I also, for some sensory seekers, I'm like, feel free to stand and eat if that's helpful and you need to move or shake or leave the table and come back. My son sits, he's vestibular seeking. He sits, Bouncy Bands, this company I put in, makes sit and twist. So it can twist 120 degrees and it's a little circle. It's super light. He has one at home. He has one at school. He uses it at circle time at school. It sits in his chair. In fact, his new school that he just joined, about 3 days in, they were like, where's this from? We're buying more for our class. It's incredible because they can't turn all the way around where they would like kick somebody next to them, but they can turn enough like you would in a swivel chair to get the movement they need to be at the dinner table, to be sitting still. Another hot tip is to do some sensory input on the way to the table. So I might say, okay, it's time for dinner. How many hops do you think it'll take you to get from here to the table? Do you think you can do it in 6 hops? let's see, can you hop like a bunny 6 times and see if you make it? And say they get it in 6, I'm going to say, oh man, you got it in 6. I wonder next time if you'll be able to get it in 5. Should we try that next time? And so you're making a game out of it, which is going to produce dopamine, which is our reward center of the brain. And especially if this child's neurodivergent, what we know from the latest research is that there are lower dopamine stores for some neurodivergent humans, which means they have less dopamine in their body. So when we're trying to get them to do these activities, if we make it a game, it produces dopamine for them, which their nervous system might need. So just the other night, we're like having a hard time ending the evening routine and going up for bath and bed. And so I said, oh man, you know what? While you were at school, I've been practicing and I am the fastest one in the house. I know that I can beat you up those stairs. Ready? On your mark, get set, go. And we raced up the stairs. And so we got the movement in, but it also made it a game so he could have some dopamine there to access the activity. We even see this with people who are like, yeah, I don't love going for a run, but I was a soccer and basketball player as a kid, and I love playing sports, but never once in my life was I like, oh, I can't wait to go for a run. That doesn't fire me up. But give me a game and get that dopamine, and I'm here for it. So really looking at like, how do we get that movement in going to the dinner table can be helpful too. If you leave with nothing else tonight, I hope it's this, that behavior is communication of a need. Anytime we're seeing a behavior on the surface, they're saying, I have a need, I need help, or my body's overwhelmed, or my body needs to move, or I need to feel connected, or like I'm included, or like I belong. And we can see an uptick in those connection needs when they start a new class and there are new friends or new teachers, and they're still not at school yet, maybe feeling that connection yet. They're still building an attachment to the teacher or forming new friendships in the class. They might look for increased attention or connection at home. And for those attention needs, they're not going to say, can I have your attention? Or I want to connect with you. They're going to poke you in the hand with a fork at the dinner table, or they're going to go over and stare you in the face and do something they're not supposed to. Their nervous system is going to try and get your attention however it knows how, however it can. And so often, if we aren't proactively pouring into that connection, then they're going to start, their nervous system's going to say, okay, we're not just getting the connection right out the bat. So let's see, maybe if I poke her in the hand with a fork, she'll pay attention to me. I think of the movie Inside Out when I think of this, where there's those characters inside the brain just saying, how do we make this happen? And so when we're looking at those emotional needs, if you see an uptick in attention-seeking behavior, that makes a lot of sense at the beginning of the school year. And it won't always be that way. It'll plateau again as they continue to form relationships at school. Do you have suggestions for a 3.5-year-old entering preschool for the first time? There's a lot of apprehension and big feelings for both family and child. I sure do. Yeah, let's go actually right into those. So some things that I want to look at are some sample scripts here. I want to validate their feelings. So instead of, don't be nervous, you're going to have so much fun, I might say something like, oh, I know it's so nerve-wracking when you do something new and you don't know what it's going to be like. I get that, bud. So we're going to look at how do we validate that experience. Our job is not to make sure that the hard thing goes away. This is, I think, the absolute hardest part of parenting, is that resilience is built in times of struggle. And so I think back when Sage started childcare, we were maybe a week in. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. And we're in the car on the way there. And he said, Mom, I'm going to be sad and I'm going to be all alone. And in that moment, I'm like, I don't need this. I can quit my job. Like, let's go home, right? Like, please sign me up for not having you be sad and alone in your sadness. And instead, had to like practice this, which is the hardest thing to do in the moment. And I said, oh, buddy, that makes so much sense when you're doing something new, that you would feel lonely when you're feeling sad and missing us. I get that. I said, do you want to know something so cool about feelings? Do you remember last night when you were playing that game with Daddy and you were on his shoulders and he was saying, where's Sage? Where's Sage? And he was spinning you around and he was looking for you and you were laughing and you were happy and having fun. And now you're not happy and you're not laughing and you're not having fun. Because none of our feelings, not even happy, stay for a long time. We feel something, and then when we let our body feel that thing, then pretty soon you'll feel something else. So you might feel sad when you're at school, and you might feel lonely when you're at school. What helps you feel safe or included when you feel ready? And he said, I feel safe when I can go under the slide. There was like a little structure in his classroom with steps up and a slide down, and there was this little nook where he could kind of hide. And he said, when I can go under the slide and I can bring Slothy, his stuffed animal. And I said, that's a great idea. When you are feeling sad and you're ready to start feeling safe, you can go under the slide. And he said, I can't go under every time. I was like, what do you mean? And he said, if we're at circle time or if it's snack time. And I said, oh, I can talk to your teachers and let them know if you're feeling sad, that'll help you feel safe. And they can come check on you and see if you need help coming out when it's time. And he was like, okay. And so we made that plan, and he would, at drop off, I would say goodbye to him with tears going down his face. It's the most heartbreaking while he was under the slide. And I would say, I love you, buddy. You won't feel sad for a long time. And I'm proud of you for letting your body feel sad. And then I would go to the car and I would call my best friend and I would sob, because it's the hardest thing in the world, is allowing your child to experience and feel something hard and not rescue them from it. And my first book was Tiny Humans, Big Emotions. And my next book, Big Kids, Bigger Feelings, is the elementary school range. And it publishes next week. And when we were doing the research for this book for big kids, one thing that was so cool to look at was kids who have had practice in that separation, who have had practice before they get to elementary school, the skills and tools and confidence that they were able to build over those times in childcare, through preschool, through those early years, where they learned, oh, I'm safe to separate from you. I'm safe in this other environment. And there are so many different ways that we can send them the message that they are safe there. We can do so by having a concrete goodbye. We can do so by telling them, I know it's so hard when you don't know these teachers yet. You're safe here, and you'll get to know them soon. And allowing that messy middle transition time to exist without rushing into making the hard parts go away. It's so much easier for me to say that to you than it will be for you to put it in practice and to recognize that. I want you to give yourself grace. And even for us as adults, look at, where can we reduce task demands? Where can we say, this is going to be an emotionally taxing time for us as a family. And so where can I take care of myself? Thank you for that. Congrats. Appreciate it. And sometimes this for me is like, I'm going to order takeout tonight, or I'm doing breakfast for dinner, because that is how I can, for myself, make fewer decisions and take things off of my plate so that I have more bandwidth for the hard, messy middle parts of this season. Now, when we're in it, we're going to tap into two types of coping. We're going to have coping mechanisms. These are things that will temporarily numb the nervous system. These produce that dopamine that we were talking about. It could be a lovey, it could be screens, sometimes it's food. For adults, it can be anything we're doing kind of obsessively. It can be movement, it can be alcohol or substance related. It can be, my favorite coping mechanism is Facebook Marketplace. I don't even need the thing. I'm just like, is it still available? Check, a little dopamine hit, pumping the brakes and having to feel this hard thing. Sometimes we're going to turn to coping mechanisms, and that's fine. It is so fine to not go through a strategy and process emotions every time. We don't always have the capacity and bandwidth. What's so key to note is that when we do tap into a coping mechanism, it's like pushing the snooze button. It doesn't make the hard thing or the hard feeling go away. It just gives us temporary relief for our nervous system. This is where you might see when your kids are spent and they come home. For some kids, if they watch a show and right when they come home, it's like, this like they can crash into the couch and kind of zone out. but leaving that activity can feel really hard sometimes for certain kiddos because that means they have to start feeling the hard stuff again. That when they stop getting the dopamine they're going to get from the screen, then they're going to get back to feeling the hard thing. And so one thing we look at is how do we pair mechanisms with strategies? How can I, for my kid who's a sensory seeker and likes that touch, maybe I'm going to sit down with them for a couple minutes of the show and like have them in my lap or snuggle them. Our high connection seekers, for sure, I'm going to see how can I be around for a couple minutes of that. Listen, screens in my household are times where I use them so that I can cook dinner, I can do things, I can step away. It's not realistic that I'm gonna sit down and watch all these shows with my kids. Those are times where I'm capitalizing and doing other things in the household. Like, thank you, Miss Rachel, for watching my children right now. I'm gonna go cook dinner. And so when we're looking at this, looking at it doesn't have to be the whole time that you're gonna pop in and provide some of those strategies. And the strategies are those sensory rich activities, the things we learn about their nervous system of what types of input do they like. My son hanging upside down watching a show. His nervous system's like, whoop, I need vestibular input while I watch this show. I put some different seating in my living room where I threw like a cushion on the ground. I got a bean bag actually recently off Facebook Marketplace, threw to my living room. So my proprioceptive seeking daughter can like crash into that and get some proprioception while she's watching it. So when we're looking at coping mechanisms versus strategies, whenever we're tapping into a mechanism, just recognizing that if we don't add a strategy in at the same time, we are going to see a big meltdown or a hard feeling, often within about 15 minutes of that mechanism ending. Now, when we're looking at helping them feel safe in this new environment, when it comes to drop off, we want to plan, what is it going to be, create it with them if they're old enough, and then practice it. And then keep it short, connected, and consistent. When they know what to expect, they know we're doing this thing. My daughter's room, infant toddler room, they have a curtain on the window of the door and they do goodbye boos, they call them, where they do peekaboos. So I go outside the door, a teacher holds her and they do 3 peekaboos. 1, 2, they say boo and I'm on the other side of the door. And then 3, they say boo and they say bye mama. And then I walk away. She knows every time when they start to do a boo, I'm going to leave. And sometimes for them, it's like, oh, they start to feel that separation piece and they may start to feel sad. What happens over time is that the nervous system really feels safe in that because our nervous system loves predictability. Our nervous system wants to know what's coming next. And so when we have consistency and predictability, it is glorious because let's get nerdy for a second, form something called a neural pathway where our brain says, it's kind of like Pavlov's dog where, okay, when the bell rings, I get a treat. When the bell rings, I get a treat. When the bell rings, I get a treat. And then you ring that bell and that dog expects a treat. For us, when this thing happens and here's the result, this thing happens, here's the result, we start to come to feel safe in that. And then it enters into our subconscious, which requires way less of our brain space than our conscious brain. Right now, in this season where everything feels new, our kids and we are using our conscious brains because so much is new. That it's like, in the same way, if you started a new job, you might have to use Google Maps to figure out how to get there over and over and over until you can drive there without even thinking about it. You don't even remember the drive anymore because it becomes a part of your subconscious. When we're looking at drop off, routines are so helpful and keeping that consistent. We are sending them the message that we believe that they are safe here, that they are here with adults who can keep them safe, that they are here with adults who will support them when they're having a hard time. And when we send that message through our body language, through our words, through walking away when they're having a hard time at that drop off, it's not like when she does the boo, she's like, bye mom, have a great day. She still might feel sad, my daughter. And I'm trusting that that teacher who's holding her in her arms will support her through that sadness so that I can send her nervous system that message. I can confidently say goodbye because I know she's going to be supported. I told them at the beginning of the year, one thing that's so helpful for me as a parent at the beginning of the year, if she does have a really hard goodbye or is crying, when she settles, if you could just send me a little note letting me know, it helps my mama heart. And they were like, yeah, of course. And there's been 2 times where I've gotten a little message like, hey, here's a picture of her eating a snack. She did cry for a minute. Here's what we did. She's off to eating now in a regulated state. And that for me is like, okay. It builds that confidence in me that I can walk away from her when she's having that hard time because she comes around from it. She can handle hard things. Hate that. I hate that in order for them to learn that they can handle hard things, they have to practice. It's my least favorite part of parenting. Here are some ideas of things you could do. Let's say goodbye. I've got 3 kisses for you. Where would you like the first kiss? Pause. The second kiss. Pause. The third. I can't wait to see you after school. I'll wave to you from the window. Love you. Bye. Or it's time for me to go. I know you're feeling sad today. You're safe here and I'll be back after snack. I love you so much. What tips do you have to handle bad behavior? I don't want to condone it, but also realize they need help. Darcy, while I go to the next slide, will you give me more context? Are you seeing it in the morning before you leave? Are you seeing it in the afternoon? What are you seeing and how old are they? And now picking up. When we pick them up, we have a kiddo who's coming to us who has been using their brain all day long. It is often coming to us a little fried. They've been in a room with lots of noises and sounds and other kids and movement and all that jazz. We know what this feels like as parents when you're like, oh my gosh, I just want to be in a dark room where no one's talking to me or touching me or needing anything from me. They're coming to us sometimes in that state. And so when we're looking at this, I'm saying, okay, right from the time that I pick them up and I'm trying to get them to the car, what are some things I'm going to do that are helpful for them? For our sensory sensitive kids, I'm going to look at, would you like to read a book or color in your notebook in the car ride home? We have one of those like little kind of like Magnadoodle, but small ones, things that he can just color on and zone out. He doesn't want me to talk to him on the way home usually. Or sometimes it's the opposite where he holds everything together and then it doesn't maybe say a lot at school until he feels safe. And so he just like word vomits everything to me where he can't stop talking. And then for my daughter, I'm looking at things like frog jumps and getting that movement in for her. For example, a 4-year-old hitting or biting a sister when it's never happened before, and I think she's overwhelmed. It sounds like she's overwhelmed. Yeah. Like her nervous system is so fried that the hitting is happening or the biting is happening because she doesn't have access to calm and make a different choice. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is have you take that questionnaire, and let me pop it in the thing here in case anyone, it's seedquiz.com if you didn't get to scan that QR code. Take that questionnaire and look at those results. And that's what you're going to do before, like right when she comes home from school. I'm going to tap into some of those regulating activities to give her more capacity. So we're going to decrease that hitting and biting. I'll give you an example of this. We do this work in childcare programs and family childcare providers and also school systems. And we're working with an elementary school. Last year was our first year with them, and they have a high needs population, and they had a lot of big behaviors like pulling the fire alarm, ripping stuff off the walls, throwing things. And we came in, and all we focused on first and foremost was this sensory regulation. So we got to know every kid's nervous system and put things in place for their regulation proactively throughout the day. We also helped each teacher know for their kids who had the most challenging behaviors or who would go into fight mode, here's how their nervous system works. So when they are starting to get agitated or frustrated, here are activities that are going to help build their capacity and help bring them down. We saw a 60% reduction in behavior support calls from Q1 to Q2 simply by focusing on sensory regulation first. It's a game changer that when we're seeing that hitting or that biting and it feels like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? Who is this kid? What I'm seeing there is a kid who is overwhelmed and it is stress behavior, not misbehavior. And so when we're looking at that stress behavior, I'm going to say, how can I reduce stress by reducing stimuli? And how can I increase capacity depending on how their nervous system works? So it might be a quiet, calm space that reduces capacity or it increases capacity for them, or it might be that movement or connection with you that increases capacity. Work is unfortunately not a one size fits all. And so it does take understanding their nervous system to know what's going to actually work for her. So start there at that quiz and it'll give you ideas right afterward. Connection after school. Connection's also not one size fits all. Our kids like to connect in different ways. Think of this like love languages, where some of them want to talk to you and touch and be close and tell you about their day. And other kids are like, I want you to come play with me, but I want to tell you exactly how to play because I need to control something when my day has fell out of control. So we can look at how do we do this together. It could be engage in child-led play without a screen, where they get to tell you, this is the person you're going to be, this is the character, this is the voice I want you to use, or these are the words I want you to say, or we're going to build with magnet tiles and we're going to do a bridge, and they're telling you exactly where to put all the magnet tiles. Let them lead the way. They're saying, I need control to feel safe and connected again. And we get to allow that and say, yeah, I'm here with you. You get to have some control in this space right now. Cook together. They can help you make dinner. My daughter's job is to take stickers off of any of the fruit or vegetables. That's like her favorite job. And looking at like, what are the activities they can do or participate in? I also recognize it's harder to cook with kids than without them. And so if you're like, I don't have enough capacity for that, that's not the one we're going to choose. Snuggle them if that fills them up. Label and kiss their cheeks and their chin and their fingers and make it a little game. Have a dance party. Go for a walk. Read a book. We have a family who was like, oh my gosh, it's been so great for my two kids who are so different, but they come home after school and each kid gets to pick a book and they turn off all the lights in one of their bedrooms and they use flashlights to read them. And it's this like quiet downtime where the one who needs the touch is like snuggled into her, and the one who needs that quiet time and like no lights on and less stim gets that from the environment. Sing together, unless you're in my household where Sage will tell you, I don't like when we're a singing family. Use animal sounds or gestures in place of speaking, or count their fingers and toes. We can look at little micro moments of connection can really add up in the same way that I do the dishes and my husband walks by and says, hey, thanks for doing the dishes. Or I noticed you dropped that stuff off at the post office. Thanks so much for doing that. That feels connecting. I feel seen in that. And we can look at the same type of thing for our kiddos. Now, in these first few weeks, you can expect some sensory dysregulation, some dysregulated nervous systems where they're going to need more sensory input than they will in an ongoing fashion, or where they just have less capacity. And we're going to do things for them that we know they know how to do, things like that, reducing that task demand. I think of this of like when I'm postpartum and I'm like, I can do all these things. And also I'm so tired and exhausted and just like leaking fluids from all the holes. And can somebody just come and help me and do things that I know how to do myself? That's what we're looking at here is how do we support them with those things? They might seek more time or connection with you. They might have a shorter fuse. You might see more meltdowns. You might see sleep changes or needing extra help with tasks they typically do independently. Just know that this is a season. This is temporary. This is resilience. Being in the hard stuff and moving through it is how our nervous system learns how to do that and builds resilience and confidence that we can do these hard things. And it's hard. It is messy. And so give yourself grace. Just the other morning, we're on the way to school, and I was full yelling at my 4-year-old, why are you being rude to everyone around you? Again, master's degree in this, research in this, 2 books on this, and I'm yelling at my 4-year-old at 8:30 in the morning on the way to school because this season is tough. We're going to be more fried, and their behaviors drain our nervous system too. And then he said, actually, Mom, it was rude of you to yell like that. I was like, oh my gosh, child, you're not wrong. And I said, you're right. I'm going to put my AirPods in and I'll be back to help you in a minute. Put my AirPods in, I put on a song, and I got to control the sound, which I so desperately needed in that moment. And it's not like they were like, enjoy your trip to the spa, mom, have a nice break. No, they're still bickering with each other in the back seat. And I just got a break from it for a minute so that I could return to them. Again, resilience is built in the times of struggle, and that's what you're building right now. I'm going to take some more questions here, but I'll leave this up here. This is where you can connect with us. Tiny Humans, Big Emotions, as a New York Times bestseller, is out now, published in 2023, and I read the audiobook for that. And then Big Kids, Bigger Feelings publishes on Tuesday. It's for the 5 to 12-year-old range. I also read the audiobook for that, if that's helpful. The QR code is there again for that questionnaire. And then these are all the places you can find us over on Instagram at seed.and.so. I have a weekly podcast, Voices of Your Village, a website with a bunch of resources. And if you are a Little Sprouts family, if you are in this world, then you get access to 10 of our courses online, and you can check in with your child's director to access the code for your school and be able to dive into those courses. I've noticed that sometimes the anticipation of leading up to the change totally can lead to more behavior issues than the actual change. For example, the 2 days before school, any tips for how to navigate this stage? I love this question, Darcy. And it's so true, right? It's that like anxiety before the thing actually happens is what we're seeing, because the nervous system is saying, okay, no, this is coming, but I don't know what it's actually going to be like. And in that unknown is where anxiety lives. It grows in the unknown. Because again, our nervous system loves predictability. It loves knowing what to expect. And so I want to look at what visual cues can we have? I asked our kids, teachers in school to just send pictures. I was like, can you just email me some pictures of the classroom, the school, the environment, any lunch table or playground pictures, and pictures of the teachers with their names. And we just looked at pictures and talked about them over and over and over. Like, oh, here's what the cubbies look like. I wonder which one's going to be yours. I don't know which one's going to be yours, but it looks like you'll put your stuff in your cubby, and then we'll go in your classroom and look, there's a fridge. I bet that's where your lunchbox goes. And then it looks like you're going to be able to play in the classroom. Let's look at the picture. What types of things do you notice in here? And helping the brain start to have some knowns in the unknown. Also a visual aid, if possible, that is like a calendar, for instance, where we can just say, here's what today is, here's when we're going to school. So if you have a kid who's like, wait, is today the school day? Is it today? Am I going to school tomorrow when I wake up in the morning? That provides the known for them of when is this happening, even though like paper chain loops so they know when it's coming. Super helpful. Some sort of visual that's like tangible for them. And then just knowing that it's also okay if the unknown is hard for them. You can name that. You know what? I've noticed that your body's been having a hard time. That makes sense. When I'm about to do something new, it feels overwhelming for my body too. I'm here if you want to talk about it, or if you're curious about what school's going to be like. Do you want to drive over and see what it's going to be like to drive to school and see the outside? You know, like we can look at how can we open up conversation or give them some knowns and just name it, name that feeling. If an almost 3-year-old is trying to drop a nap at school with new teachers and classmates when we know he needs the rest, should we let him drop it and just go to bed early, or should we keep reinforcing the nap knowing this phase may pass once he settles in? Yeah, so I would give my greatest gift as a teacher, excuse me, one second. My greatest gift as a teacher was being in community with parents. You know your child best. You're the expert on your kid. And so when you can share with teachers, hey, I know that there's a million kids at nap time. One thing that we do at home that's really helpful is that he's in a space where he can't see other kids. I'm happy to brainstorm this with you, but do you know if there's any spots in the classroom where he can kind of like be by himself or like kind of walled off a little bit? Uh, or he is so aware of all the other voices and things happening. It's most helpful for him if he's closer to the sound machine, if there's one in the classroom. Really looking at what do you know about him that works at home that they might be able to glean info from. And then knowing that, yeah, he also might not nap at school with all the newness of it right now. And for now, I would definitely do that earlier bedtime and even look at in the afternoon, I'm going to reduce activities. Like when we come home, I'm not like, yeah, and let's go to this thing or that thing, or let's have friends over or a play date. In these first couple of weeks where he's going to be more tired and drained, I would look at how do we pull back on anything extra that we can and just give his body a break and put him down early for bed wherever possible. And this phase will probably pass once he settles in, once he gets comfortable there, as his teachers get to know him and all that jazz. It's so hard. It's so hard when they come home tired and you're like, what time is bedtime? And also, I don't want to wish time away, but also, what time is bedtime? Can relate. My
I
daughter,
can relate.
sorry.
I can totally
Yeah, it's
relate.
so real.
It is
My
so
daughter's
real. And
now
then
to
they go to
school is
sleep and you just
trash.
look at their pictures of them. Yeah.
Just staring at that monitor. I'm like, oh my God, you're so cute. How were you so insane an hour ago? Yeah,
Yep.
it's real.
Yep.
It's
It is
real.
real. Alyssa, this has been so informative. Thank you so much for joining our community. You are such an important part of our community at all of our schools, and to share your knowledge with all of our families is such a privilege. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who participated for asking your questions. This is what we all go through, and so it's really great to share these experiences together. And it's hard and it's real. And if we all can, just try to make that one little change, then we're all doing something better for ourselves and for our children, right? And we
Yeah.
won't be perfect every single time, but I think
Yeah,
this
thank you.
gave us the skills.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for having me, and just cheers to everyone in this season of like it truly it will not always be this hard.
Yes, this is the season of change and for all of us, truly. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good night,
Awesome.
everybody. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Bye.
Bye.